to start the sermon this. Whoa, you did turn me on. I'm going to start the sermon this morning asking you to use your imagination, and then afterward there will be a quiz for one person only, and that is Richard. Unless there's another engineer. None of the rest of you are engineers, right? If you are, admit it. It's not a sin. Can't be done. It is a sin to be an engineer. It's going to be a quiz for an engineer. Okay? So here's what I'd like you to imagine. The first thing I'd like you to imagine is a tube of acrylic, clear, about this long and about 3 inches in diameter. Okay? So a clear acrylic tube about 3 feet long and about 3 inches in diameter. Then imagine a needle stuck in the tube at about the center point, going halfway through it. So inside the 1.5 inch mark. So you're with me? You got a tube and a needle stuck in it. Attached to the needle, a bottle of green dye. Okay? And the green dye will be able to drip into the acrylic tube. You with me so far? Now attach a faucet or a pipe or a hose to one end of the acrylic tube, which is going to be a source of water. Okay? So, 3 foot long acrylic tube, clear so you can see what's happening inside, 3 inches in diameter, a needle going into it to about the halfway point, a bottle of green dye on top of it, any size you like, and a water source attached to the end. Now, here's what you do. You turn on the water as you begin to drip the green dye. So imagine that tube, that acrylic tube, is full of water flowing at a reasonably slow pace. The dye goes into the water. What is going to happen to the dye? What do you think it's going to look like when it hits the water? The tube is full of flowing water, and the dye at a consistent rate is going into that stream of water. What's going to happen to the dye? Anybody want to hazard a guess?
Well,
we don't go to hell if we get it wrong.
We got to talk about the viscosity now.
No, don't worry about that. Just green dye. Thin. Don't worry about viscosity. Just thin green dye.
Well, if you turn that tap up pretty good, everything's going to go out.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's going to come out the other end. That's the point. What's going to happen if you put the green dye at a consistent rate through the needle into the water, and the water is flowing at a consistently reasonable rate? You will have one thin line of dye. Okay? One thin line of dye will flow. What I'm going to suggest in this sermon is that's the world that you and I grew up in. Now, increase the volume of water going through. Increase the pressure. Increase the speed of the water. What do you think is going to happen? It's going through in the same way, it's just accelerated. What's going to happen to the green dye? Is it going to stay the same or is it going to change? How's it going to change? I'm setting him up here. And Richard is being very cautious, not to say anything.
I'm being very polite.
Thank you very much. He's a very polite gentleman. What's going to happen is, as the pressure increases, where the dye comes in out of the end of the needle, you're going to start seeing little eddies of color. It's no longer going to be a smooth line. There's going to be little eddies of color. And if you choose to turn up the pressure, the water pressure, and the speed of the water at a certain point, and it's going to happen really suddenly, instead of a line, it's going to go. And what's going to happen is, once the water gets past the needle, it's all going to be tinted slightly green. There is not going to be any more line. It's all going to be totally mixed together. Richard, here's your test. The test is the first thing, where you've got this one thin stream coming out. What type of flow is that called?
Laminar Flow.
Way to go! Oh yes. So, if you think that I'm making this stuff up, I'm not. That's called a, yes?
Okay. Well, I was going to say you can see it when there's candle smoke.
Absolutely.
You see
Same thing.
when it comes to.
Thank you for helping with my sermon illustration. I do appreciate that. So I'm not making this up. It's called a laminar then you turn it up even more, and what you then get is a turbulent airflow. Now, just for what this is worth, and with due respect to engineers who will want to finesse this next part of my sermon for 2 hours, and it's got to take less than 2 minutes, one application of this was when they were trying to fly faster than the speed of sound. And they were having all sorts of problems, because as you approach the speed of sound, the turbulence would literally start shaking the aircraft apart. The old idea of the way a wing was shaped just simply didn't work for going faster than the speed of sound. And so if you look at the X-15 rocket, which Jaeger took faster than the speed of sound for the first time, you'll see that it has a different type of wing. It's a completely different type of wing called a laminar wing. And jets that you and I fly in are regular, but fighter jets for the most part have laminar wings so that the air can flow uninterrupted. Okay? Otherwise what happens is as the air flows, it starts building up, and you get buffeting, and then eventually you get terrible things happen. So you got laminar flow and turbulent flow. What I'd like to suggest this morning, and I'm going to turn this into a sermon as opposed to a lecture in a minute. What I'd like to suggest is we grew up in a world that we describe in laminar terms. The water was flowing at a reasonable pace. The dye was flowing at a reasonable rate, and you saw the dye, and you understood what was going on, and we lived in it. And we could almost say that, in one sense, church, or indeed any sort of social organization, was like a stream of dye in that flow of water. Maybe we'll make the stream of church a green line of dye flowing through the water. Maybe we'll make the YMCA a blue line of dye. Maybe we'll make the Boy Scouts a yellow line of dye. Maybe we'll make Girl Guides of America pink. I shouldn't have said that. Purple, let's make them purple. But there were all these streams flowing through society at a given rate, and we all understood them, we all knew what they were. This is just an image that I'm giving you. But then at some point, the pace of change in society really accelerated. People have tried to identify exactly when that happens. There's this guy named Eddie Obey, who does a thing called After Midnight, which I think is absolutely brilliant. You should all look it up. It's just absolutely brilliant. He says it was year 2000, happened after midnight when we were all asleep, so we didn't know. The pace of change just accelerated exponentially, and everything that we thought we knew, we no longer knew. Everything was thrown into confusion and into chaos. I think he's wrong. I don't think it happened after midnight. I think we were all awake, and I think we were all trying to pretend we weren't seeing what was going on. Those of us, again, who've been around for a while, experienced the 60s and experienced incredible social upheaval and change. Some for the better, some for the worse, but incredible social upheaval and change. 70s was the same. The Vietnam War is often referred to as a watershed time. Theoretically, the first war that America lost, they forgot 1812, but anyway, nonetheless, the Vietnam conflict sent shockwaves. The press was available to us in a way that it hadn't been before. We saw a war live on television with your Swanson frozen TV dinner, which was also a reflection of the times you're living in. That no longer was mom home cooking for supper, as Father Knows Best came home from work, gave her a kiss on the cheek, received a martini. Oh no, that was Darren and Samantha on Bewitched. And then of course everybody was off to their activities, so of course there's no time for mom to cook supper because she's got her activities. So now we've got Swanson frozen TV dinners, which are going to make everything good. And so you get the picture of the lovely suburban family coming home from work. Swanson comes out. Of course, mom is still there, beaming like the housewife that she is, or was, or is to come. No, that's a him. Holding the Swanson TV dinner as if it was, Thanksgiving turkey. And everybody sits down in front of the television with their tray tables or their TV trays or their TV tables and watches television while eating their Swanson TV dinners. So you don't have to worry about Swanson. I'm not against Swanson, by the way. The pace of change is accelerating. Things are becoming more instant. You have instamatic cameras. We don't have the time any longer to load film and camera. We're going to load a cassette. We don't have time any longer to put a flash bulb in the camera. We're going to use a flash cube. I'm dating myself here, but 126 Instamatic cartridges are being sold. Everything is pace change. So another way of saying what I'm saying in terms of the lines flowing through, in a laminar fashion, is when pressure turns up and the pace of change accelerates, it's like turning that laminar flow into a turbulent flow. Another way of saying it would be to say, what we are experiencing in our society is the consequences of a time when the pace of change has outpaced the rate of adaptation. Okay? The pace, and this is actually a good sentence. Believe it or not, this is like 6 o'clock in the morning at the campsite, but anyway, the pace of change has outpaced our rate or our ability to adapt to it. And so if you feel like you're constantly playing a game of catch-up in one way or another, it's because you are. Don't try to maintain your own car anymore. You can't do it. You can't do it. You don't have the equipment. You've got to take it to a garage where they plug it. You might be able to change your own oil, but the environmentalists won't let you do that. I'm not going to ask for confession, but anybody ever changed their own oil and then throw the oil down the local sewer? No, you've got to take your car into the garage because they're going to plug it in. And the guy who plugs it in probably is as trained in computers as he is in wrenches. And the diagnostic machine is going to tell him what's wrong with your vehicle. And then he'll tell you what's wrong with your vehicle. He's not going to diagnose anything except a cure for the common cold. He is not, you get what I'm saying, like obviously there's a degree of exaggeration. He will tell you your tires are bald and you are too. But the diagnostician is the tool is going to do it. Marie will want to comment on. Please hold yourself back, okay? I recently got a new phone. Ben and Annie understand my phone far better than I do right now. I will, at a certain point, she's speaking here about that. Good for you, her self-control is a virtue. I will, at some point, know how to make a phone call. The other day, we were at the campsite, and there was a particular song that I had been thinking of by Seals and Crofts. If any of you remember Seals and Crofts. When I was 17, I kept leaving. I sang the whole thing, you'd leave or recognize it. And the song is called King of Nothing, which is also a sermon I'm working on, King of Nothing. But anyway, I wanted to hear it. And so very nicely, Wi-Fi, Django onto her phone, which is a sort of network, like computer radio station, and you can type in who you want, and they'll give you that band and person plus a whole lot of things that sound like it. And so I got Seals and Crofts, but then I think Marie went with Annie because Annie had to pee or something, and Ben wasn't around, and so I tried to look for a song. I didn't break her phone, but at the same time, every now and then she says to me, how come Dance Beach Party is coming up on, the pace of change. Like, I grew up with rotary. I still remember that my phone number growing up was Hunter 62759. Hunter is 486-2759. My father at work, Hunter 11159. 4811. The local in NDG was 48. Now, we've got 10 digits. You got to plug in 514 every time you make a phone call. Except apparently on my phone. Because I understand that my phone can be programmed to put in the prefix, so I don't have to do it every time. In fact, my phone, I think I'm right in this, Marie might tell you that I'm wrong, but after the service. I think I'm right in this, that there's a program on my phone that I could speak in and say, Marie, and it'll dial Marie's cell phone for me. That's cool, but scary, with somebody and my phone is on and I say, Marie, we refer to Marie, and all of a sudden Marie gets dialed. Now she knows what's going on in our meeting. You know? And you know what else? Every time Marie calls me, guess what? Her delightful, cheerful face appears on my phone. Because it's Marie calling me. And you know what else? She has her own ring. You know? All I want is a phone. That I can make a call. And answer a call. And not have to have my son graduate with his first degree in order to be able to tell me how to use it. All I want is a TV where you turn it on and you have a box, not a little bag for remotes on the side because you got 9. And you go poof. The green means go, that's power. The red means stop, that's off. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. That's all I need. And if it ain't there, I don't need it. I don't want it. No. All I need is a typewriter with a screen. When I was in university, I went out with a girl who introduced me to something that was amazingly new technology. This was incredible. It was a Smith Corona electric typewriter that worked on cartridge ribbons. The top half of the cartridge ribbon was the ink. The bottom half of the cartridge ribbon was white erase. So you could type, and then if you made mistakes, you could backspace and click and overtype. All I need. All I need with my computer is a keyboard with letters, maybe numbers, if I'm in a good mood and rested, and a screen that types the words. That doesn't ask me how I'm feeling. That doesn't ask me to name my favorite coffee. You know, that doesn't update me on the latest probe surveying the planet Pluto, which was demoted for a while, but now has been planetized again. That doesn't try to figure out my likes and dislikes. You know, some of this I find scary. I go to this place, this site called Aero Garden. It's indoor hydroponic gardening. It's fun more than anything else. When I did that, my computer has cookies. I've never found them because I like to eat them, but apparently it has cookies. And the cookies that my computer has tell it all sorts of things about my preferences. And so one day I went into my email and there was an ad for Aero Garden. Because apparently Aero Garden, I shopped there, and so either my computer ratted me out to Aero Garden, or Aero Garden figured it out, or something like that. So now I get Aero Garden ads. I can tell you a lot about yourself by looking at what ads come up on your computer. Frankly, I find this a little bit scary. I want to become, and I don't know if any of you ever fell in love with George Carlin, the comedian. Filthy mouth, but at the same time, he had some incredible insight into his society, into our society. And I would love to be the George Carlin of the church, you know, because it seems to me that one of the things that I'm speaking of here, and given lots of, I hope, cutesy little examples of, is how the pace of change has outpaced the pace of adaptation in society. And it seems to me that when we look at the church, and the things we do well, and the things we do not so well, and the things we do absolutely horribly, what we're doing is trying to minister to a turbulent time with a laminar methodology. The times are not like they were. And if you ever think there's going to be a church, a mainline church, that comes out with a program that attracts the community, like in the 50s, you whistle, you see, it ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. How does the church has to learn how to do laminar turbulent ministry in turbulent times. We have to get over our laminar nature. Now sometimes we think we're doing something that fits into the times we're living in, but upon reflection we have to have the honesty to say, that's not really what's happening. And I'd like to give you an example of that now. There's a church in our area, lovely people, was lovely people, a really good minister, close to a school, close to several schools in fact. And they looked at their congregation on Sunday morning. I know those people well. In fact, it's one of the churches I served in. And they're just a marvelous people and very, very dedicated and committed to their church. A lot of them been there for a long time. And they probably fairly adequately represent the demography of the Anglican Church. I'd say probably, if you added up the age, it would be median 60s, somewhere in the middle of the 60s. And they would look around their church and see that despite the fact that they were surrounded by school and college, and part of the university as well, there were no kids, there were no young people in their church. Why not? Why aren't they there? Well, obviously we're not reaching them. The way we're doing things is not reaching them. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to do something that will reach the young people. And what they did was they created a program that was absolutely wonderful and supremely successful and totally useless in terms of ministry. They were a Laminar church, and they still are a Laminar church, as are we for the most part. And with great sincerity and great dedication and faith, what they decided to do is that we're not reaching the kids the way we're doing things. Let's put on a pizza lunch every Friday. And so what they did was, a group of them, and I know all of them, and they are all wonderful people, they decided they were going to buy pizza, not on the church budget, on their own budget. They were going to buy pizza. And they were going to put a sign up inviting high school and college kids to come and have free pizza. And that was going to be their way of introducing these young people to the church. And the goal was that ministry would evolve. Well, you know what happened. They could have kept going until they bought out every pizza shop in West Island. Because if you say to a high school student or a college student, at lunchtime on Friday there's going to be free pizza every lunchtime, every Friday, it's not long before your parish hall is filled with teenagers eating pizza. But that's not ministry. That's pizza. And they kept it going for a while. They kept it going, because they saw it. The intention of their heart was ministry to young people. They were very sincere. I hope I'm being really clear on that. They were very sincere. But what happened wasn't, in fact, ministry. It was giving people free pizza. And it did not turn into ministry. And it never will. Because the motivation of the people coming was not to receive ministry or to get to know the church. The motivation was to get pizza. Okay? It is easy to fill a church. If I was the type of individual who had contacts in the music industry, and talking about miracles, I could call up Taylor Swift and say, could you come to St. Mary's next Sunday and just, sing some songs for us? And he got around on the West Island that Taylor Swift was coming to our church. We would have no problem filling the church. We need security to keep people out. And if you think this is an exaggeration, I want to give you one small example just from our neighborhood. Across the street and just down one house used to live this guy by the name of Adam. Adam loved Halloween. And he did the most elaborate Halloween preparations that you can imagine. It was just remarkable. He had a giant witch stirring a cauldron. He used an old turntable and attached a broomstick to it, attaching it to the witch. And as the turntable, it looked like she was stirring her cauldron, and he used dry ice and sound and lights. It was absolutely incredible. One year, the press picked up on Adam's house and put it all over the news. Guess what happened the following year? People from all over the city came because Adam had been on television. Do you know that some of the people who come to our house on Halloween come from the East End? because stuff is better on the West Island. Do you know that some of the kids who come to the door to sell us chocolate bars come from other parts of the city? Because we tend to have more money in our parts of the West Island, and it's a better marketplace. You know, going back to what I said about pizza, it's about motivation. The kids that go to Adams are motivated for candy. The kids that come to our door to sell chocolate bars are motivated to sell chocolates. They're not motivated to be part of the community. Not at all. The people who come to eat pizza, they're not motivated to become part of the kingdom of God. They're motivated to eat pepperoni. Okay? As a church, we have to learn that, because we haven't learned it. We behave in a Laminar Flow that if only we get it right, everybody will see the wonder of our lovely green line going through all this waterless society, and they will want to be green, just like us, metaphorically speaking. But the times we're living in are turbulent. And in order to reach our society, we have to behave, recognize, in such a way that we recognize that our society is in a turbulent time. So what's that mean? Well, it means we have to rediscover how people come to faith in the first place. And what I'm going to say here, and I'm not going to develop it very much, is there are 5 stages to spiritual growth, and we tend to ignore, well, the first and the second, but primarily the first. 5 stages of spiritual growth are this: pre-commitment, commitment, growth, ministry, and holiness. 2 minutes on growth, ministry, and holiness. After you come to a faith commitment, there usually is a time of great excitement about the Bible, about Christian community, about service, about participation, about worship, about music, all sorts of things. There's an incredible growth phase, just like when you develop a new hobby. You know, the enthusiasm of the new hobby. When a kid gets a new toy, the enthusiasm of the new toy. That's natural to us. The enthusiasm of buying a new car. You know what I'm talking about. That correlates to the growth phase of Christianity. After the growth phase, though, you sort of go, what's this for? It's not just for my own jollies. And then you get into the ministry phase. What does this offer to me, certainly, but to humanity as a whole? And then what happens after you've been in growth of ministry for a while, and these aren't hard and fast, they flow back and forth, right? After being in ministry for a while and gotten beaten up enough and gotten rewarded enough, you start to develop an inner holiness. You start to behave and be more in the image and likeness of Christ. We become transformed more and more into His image. So that's growth, ministry, and holiness. In the church, we have functioned forever on growth, ministry, and holiness. Our sacraments are devoted to growth, ministry, and holiness. Baptism, confirmation, ordination, growth, ministry, and holiness. That's what we talk about all the time. But because our ecclesiastical mainline structure comes out of what could be called a Christendom worldview, we have, in the mainline churches, for the most part, ignored, sometimes even denied, the first 2, which is pre-commitment and commitment. In the days of the early church, they did not deny this, they knew this. And so they had a thing called a catechumenate, which is for a sermon for another time. Pre-commitment marks that time where something happens to someone in their life, either an event or a relationship, that causes them to go, I wonder about God. I wonder about God. Or maybe I wonder about church. Or I wonder about that minister. Or I wonder about that parishioner. There seems to be something that they don't have words for. So pre-commitment is marked by a curiosity. Something piques somebody's curiosity in some way about things spiritual. And that pre-commitment phase can go on for a long, long, long time. Or not so long. It depends on the opportunities that are presented. Then the next thing that happens is this. At a certain point, in every relationship, somebody has to pop the question. In a marriage, somebody has to ask somebody if they'll marry them. Otherwise, it'll just flow along. In every relationship, will you be my friend? Are you my friend? Somehow, at some point, there is a question that needs to be asked. As Anglicans, we have asked our questions sacramentally in terms of growth, ministry, and holiness. We've asked questions of parents and sponsors in baptism, we've asked questions of candidates in confirmation, assuming that these people have already made the commitment and are therefore capable of answering the questions. Often they're not. Often they're not. Often they haven't been exposed enough to the information or haven't been around enough or whatever. Pre-commitment is a prerequisite, but at some point somebody has to say, so, what about God? What about Jesus? If our churches are to survive for the sake of God and His kingdom, not for the sake of our comfort level, but for the sake of God and His kingdom, we have to rediscover that we are ministering not in a Laminar time, where all the rules and all the benchmarks are the way they always were, but in a turbulent time. And that the pace of change is very, very fast. And we have to embrace that. And we have to also recognize that no longer are we reminding people of something they once knew but have forgotten or has slipped their mind. But rather, we are introducing people to new data. There are so many colors of dye streaming in that turbulent flow that we are just one voice. We have to recognize that our society needs to see pre-commitment and commitment. So how could this church have done more with pizza? Well, they could have done it very badly. When people came with their pizza, the napkins could have been, the church's logo, and Jesus loves you, do you love Him, written on the napkin as well. They would have come back, and they would have told all sorts of funny jokes about the napkins. That's not it. What it's about is relationship. What they needed was a room full of people willing to enter into dialogue, and from entering into dialogue, entering into relationship with those people. So that because of the relationship, the people that came in for pizza would end up learning far more about that church and its people than they intended when they came in. I once heard a bishop say that the praising church preaches to answer questions raised by its praise. Well, that assumes that there are people who aren't believers actually there for the praise. We're not in that world anymore. What we need to do is find ways and strategies to develop the relationships that lead to the questions, that lead people into a stage called pre-commitment, and then be equipped to offer commitment questions. Where do you stand in relation to God? When we rediscover that, just watch what happens. Because God is good. And God wants people in relationship with Him for their benefit and for the benefit of His world and His kingdom. So St. Mary's a challenge for us, and it's going to be really on the agenda this fall, is to come up with as many strategies as we possibly can to introduce people to community. More about that in the future. I think that's it for today. It's went on somewhat longer than I intended, frankly, but I actually was going to give Artie a job in the service, but I'll talk to her after the service. So now let's pray for it, and then we'll get on to the first. God, we thank you for the opportunities that you present to us. We thank you for the opportunities of music camp, for example. Just think that churches, looking under cushions and in pews and closets to find a teenager. We had 30 here jumping up and down and singing. But God, while we celebrate that and are thankful for it, we have to admit that's sort of like a pizza industry. We've never really, with intentionality, capitalized on the relationships that we developed during the summer. Similarly with the kids who come to music camp. Very rarely have we done the work to build that relationship into a kingdom relationship. So in this area, God, we offer you a strategic decision to do what we need to do, to at least to attempt to build relationships with some of those kids and some of their families as well. Similarly, our society right around us. We have a lot of schools that used to go by confessional names like Catholic School Board or Protestant School Board that don't now, and are often looking for pastoral animation. But yet sometimes, somehow, it seems hard for schools to find a minister to come in and do some work. Equally, seniors residences in the area. Always looking for folks. So the need is there, the desire is there. Lord, open our hearts, our minds, and our wills to hear your call to reach out to some really lovely but people with real needs. Strengthen your kingdom, Lord. In Jesus' name.